You ever notice how betrayal doesn't arrive like a storm? It doesn't smash through the door, rattling windows and knocking down picture frames. No, betrayal is polite. It slips in like a draft, almost invisible, until you wake up shivering and wonder when the warmth left. For me, it started with something stupid, a lamp. Every night for 6 years, she turned off the lamps before bed. One by one, like clockwork, the brass table lamp, then the floor lamp with the broken switch you had to jiggle just right. It was her ritual. Except that night, when I stumbled into the living room at 4 a.m., every damn light was still on. The glow was harsh, clinical, like a crime scene. I didn't notice the silence at first, or the faint trace of her perfume in the hallway. I didn't even notice that her phone was still off. What I noticed was the lamps. All of them, burning like they were keeping watch over something already gone. Earlier that evening, she floated down the stairs in a navy skirt that could have been spray-painted on and heels that made her legs look like they belonged on a magazine cover. She moved like someone who had already rehearsed the scene. I'd asked, "Big night?" in my best I'm not panicking voice. She smiled without showing teeth, the kind of smile you reserve for strangers you don't plan to see again. "Just a party," she said. "You wouldn't know anyone there." That phrase, "you wouldn't know anyone there," landed like a velvet-wrapped slap. I wanted to ask who was hosting, but the last time I questioned her plans, she accused me of being emotionally suffocating. So I nodded, watched her pick up the wine-colored clutch she hadn't touched in years, and let the door close on what used to be my peace of mind. By midnight, I was refreshing her location like a broken reflex. Don't judge me. You'd have done the same if your gut started screaming louder than the clock on the wall. At 2:31 a.m., her dot on the map hadn't budged in 3 hours. The address? Her ex's house. Not just any ex. The ex. The one she swore she hadn't spoken to since before we said, "I do." The one she once called a mistake in human form. Funny thing about mistakes, they don't usually throw parties, do they? When 4:07 a.m. hit, and she still wasn't home, something inside me didn't break. It shifted, like a gear finally locking into place after grinding for years. I didn't rage, didn't cry, didn't send a string of pathetic texts like some unpaid intern begging for a callback. I just stood in that fluorescent bright living room and smiled. Because I had a plan. One I'd kept tucked away like an emergency exit I never thought I'd use. A plan that wasn't loud, wasn't messy, but would echo in her bones for the rest of her life. What comes next? Let's just say by the time she waltzed through that door, sunglasses perched like a crown of arrogance, the life she thought was hers had already been packed, sealed, and signed away. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand what that night did to me. How one simple decision turned a marriage into a chessboard where every move from here on out would matter. And trust me, when she walked in the next morning, what she saw on the other side of that door wasn't anger. It wasn't heartbreak. It was something far worse, silence dressed like judgment. You ever seen someone walk into their own home and realize it isn't theirs anymore? It's a strange kind of theater, like watching an actor stride on stage only to discover the set's been swapped for a scene they don't recognize. That was her, the morning after. The door clicked at exactly 8:04 a.m. Not early enough to pretend she'd been crashing at a friend's. Not late enough to claim car trouble. Just late enough for guilt to start sweating through that silk blouse. I was already sitting on the couch, legs crossed, coffee in hand, calm as a monk on sedatives. I'd even turned off the lamps, the same lamps she'd left blazing like a confession scrawled in light. The door opened. She walked in like she was returning from a yoga retreat, not a night curled up in the bed of the man she once called a toxic mistake. Sunglasses still on, hair tousled in that effortless way women spend 20 minutes faking. A smile ghosted across her lips, the kind you paste on when you're trying to gauge the weather before stepping outside. Then she saw me, and froze. Not out of guilt. No, at least not the kind that comes with tears and apologies. This was confusion, sharp and immediate. Her eyes flicked across the living room like a security scan. Something was missing. Several somethings. The wall where our wedding photo once hung? Bare. The bookshelf above the TV? Empty. No frames, no souvenirs from that dream trip to Cabo she planned like it was the climax of a romantic comedy. The oxygen in the room shifted, thickened, and for the first time in a long time, I watched her confidence chip. "What are you doing?" Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence, but she tried to stitch it back together with a laugh that fell flatter than a soda left out overnight. I took a sip of coffee. "Enjoy your party." She blinked. Too slow. Like her brain was buffering. "I told you I was going. You didn't say not to." Classic. The game she always played, technicalities dressed as truth. She never lied outright. She just curated reality like a Spotify playlist, skipping tracks she knew I couldn't handle. I know, I said evenly. You didn't break any rules. I set the coffee cup down, leaned forward just enough for her to feel it. You just broke us. Her jaw tightened. What the hell is that supposed to mean? That's when her gaze dropped to the floor and found it, the duffel bag. Hers. Except not filled with what she expected. Not clothes, not heels, not the $1,000 hair dryer she worshipped like a holy relic. No, inside that bag was something far smaller but infinitely heavier. A single envelope. I stood, slow and deliberate, and handed her the bag like it was a peace offering. Except there was no peace in what it contained. She gripped the handles, her knuckles whitening as if the fabric might explain itself. Read it when you're alone, I said softly. It'll make more sense. For a second, she didn't move. Just stood there in her wrinkled skirt and designer shades, clutching that bag like a lifeline she didn't know was frayed. And then, because she couldn't help herself, she asked the question that told me I'd already won. What did you do? I smiled, just enough to make her wonder if the floor beneath her feet was still solid. Nothing you didn't teach me. And then I walked past her, out the door, down the steps. No suitcase. No keys tossed on the counter for dramatic effect. I didn't need to take anything with me. She'd already thrown it all away. But here's the thing about silence. It lingers. It crawls into the cracks of your life and waits, whispering questions you don't want answers to. And while she stood there in a living room stripped bare of everything familiar, the real surprise wasn't in that envelope. The real surprise was already in motion. I didn't look back when I walked out the door. People always think that's the hardest part, the leaving, but let me tell you something. It's easy to walk away when you've already left in your head weeks ago. The real performance was happening behind me, in that stripped bare living room, where she finally unzipped the duffel and found out what silence really sounds like. I know her. I can picture the sequence like a movie I directed myself. First, the hesitation, fingers grazing the zipper like it might bite. Then the rustle of fabric as she realizes the bag isn't heavy with clothes, but something light. One thing, maybe two. No shoes, no makeup bag, no lifeline. Just a single envelope tucked in a side pocket, sealed with the kind of precision that says this isn't a love letter, sweetheart. She probably sat down to open it. That couch has seen enough theatrics to qualify for its own SAG card. She'd slip her sunglasses onto the coffee table, one of the few things I left behind because I wanted her to see this without filters. The flap peeled open, and there they were. A printed email, a receipt, a note written in my neat, controlled handwriting. 10 words. That's all. 10 words that detonated louder than any screaming match we could have had. You chose a party. I chose peace. Goodbye, Callie. That's it. No explanations. No apologies. No 5-paragraph essay on why I finally snapped. Just the truth, compressed into a sentence sharp enough to cut through her excuses. But the attachments, that's what turned this from heartbreak into chess. First, the email. Subject line, lease transfer confirmation. I'd already moved the utilities, scrubbed my name from the lease, and signed over the apartment entirely to her. Sounds generous, right? Until she realized the second page, the updated rent statement without my half. Reality has a way of sobering people faster than black coffee. Then came the receipt, dated 2 weeks ago. A quiet dinner at Bar Lumen. Not a random place. Our place. Except this bill wasn't for 2 entrees and a shared bottle of wine. It was for a single glass of whiskey and the retainer fee for a lawyer who doesn't advertise on billboards but knows how to erase a person's fingerprints from a shared life without leaving smudges. I didn't need to spell it out. Assets divided, passwords changed, accounts sealed tighter than a miser's wallet. She didn't just lose a husband. She lost the scaffolding that held up the image she'd been selling to everyone, including herself. And that's when, if I know her, the real panic set in. Not the oh no, I made a mistake panic. Callie was never sentimental like that. No, what gutted her was control slipping through her fingers like wet sand. I imagine her pacing the room, clutching that note, waiting for me to text, to call, to throw her some breadcrumb she could spin into redemption. But nothing came. Not then. Not ever. Because by the time she tore open that envelope, I was already 6 blocks away, sitting in a cafe with sunlight pouring through the window, and a feeling I hadn't tasted in years. Freedom laced with just the right amount of vengeance. And here's the twist, the part she hasn't figured out yet. The envelope was just Act 1. What's coming next? That's the part where she realizes the party she thought was a victory lap was actually the opening scene of her own downfall. By the time she read those 10 words, I wasn't sipping coffee in some quiet cafe. No, I was on the phone in my car, engine humming low like a conspirator. People always assume heartbreak makes you reckless. Wrong. Heartbreak makes you surgical. It strips away the noise, the hesitations, until all you hear is the clean, sharp tick of the clock, and the clock was telling me it was time. The first call was to the leasing office. Simple, polite. Yes, I sent over the updated documents this morning. No, she hasn't seen them yet, but she will. Just make sure you confirm the auto payment cancellation on my account. They promised they would. People always promise when your voice sounds like you're already halfway gone. Next call, my bank. You think she noticed all those fun little apps she signed up for were linked to my card? The streaming services, the wine subscription, the little box of overpriced skincare products she swore were an investment? Cancelled. Every single one. The only thing she's getting next month is overdraft alerts. By the time I hit the highway, my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen like a flare in the dark. Callie. I didn't answer. Let it ring. Twice. Then silence. A text followed. What is this? Where are you? We need to talk. I stared at it long enough to memorize the desperation bleeding through those fake calm words, then slid the phone face down. She wanted a conversation. I wanted a conclusion. You see, this wasn't just about leaving. Leaving is easy. Cowards leave. I wanted something cleaner. Final. Something that didn't just slam the door, it removed the whole damn house. And that's when I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the manila folder I'd been feeding for months. You ever keep receipts for so long they start to feel like ammunition? Utility bills, pay stubs, even screenshots of her little girl's nights that somehow always tag the same 3 guys. I didn't hoard these out of spite. No, I kept them because some part of me, maybe the last sane part, knew a day like this would come. The piece de resistance? A copy of the prenup she thought was a formality. She laughed when we signed it, said, "This is just paperwork. You'd never leave me." Funny how paper cuts the deepest. Everything she built, the car in her name but financed by me, the savings account I fed like a stray dog while she pursued passions, even the condo we were supposed to close on next spring, all of it just slipped out from under her manicured fingers. Legally, surgically, with signatures she'd given me long before she ever thought about last night's little reunion. But here's the delicious part. She still doesn't know Act 2 has already started. While she's standing there clutching that envelope like a life raft, a notification just pinged on her phone. Not from me. From her company. HR. A friendly reminder that company devices aren't for personal content. Oh yes, I went there. See, when you share a Wi-Fi plan for 6 years, you learn things. Passwords. Patterns. And sometimes, you leave breadcrumbs for the right eyes to follow. I didn't send them her late-night messages, of course not. I just let the system do what it does when photos auto-sync and little cloud folders stop being so private. Corporate compliance is a hell of a thing when you're sleeping with a former client, Callie. And while she's spinning, dialing my number, rehearsing her apology for the voicemail she'll never get to leave, I'm driving, calm, steady, toward the one place she never expected me to go. Because this isn't just about burning the bridge. This is about making sure when she turns around, there's nothing but water. The call came at 10:13 a.m., just as I was merging onto the freeway. My phone lit up like a warning flare, and for a split second, I considered answering just to hear the panic in her voice. But no, I let it ring out. Twice. Then came the voicemail icon, glowing like a dare. I didn't listen. Not yet. Anticipation is sweeter than anger. Instead, I slid my phone into the cup holder and kept driving, the manila folder riding shotgun like an old friend who'd finally agreed to one last job. 5 minutes later, the text barrage began. Callie, what is this? Callie, where are you? Callie, we can fix this. Please just talk to me. Callie, why is the bank saying my card is declined? That one made me laugh out loud, the sound startling even me. It wasn't cruel laughter. It was relief, like the first lungful of air after being held under too long. She thought this was about feelings. No, sweetheart. This was about physics. You can't keep pulling bricks out of a wall and expect it to stand forever. At 10:32, my phone rang again. But not from her. Different number. Unknown, but familiar enough in its structure to make me grin. I answered this one. Mr. Langford? A crisp voice asked. Speaking. This is Natalie from Human Resources at Silver & Klein. I'm calling to confirm a few details regarding your earlier submission. Everything authenticated? I asked, cutting in gently. A pause, then, yes, sir. Given the nature of the materials and the compliance breach, we'll need to take immediate action. She'll be placed on unpaid leave while legal reviews the client disclosure policy. Translation: she was about to lose the one thing she valued more than me, her image. Thank you, I said simply, then ended the call before she could turn it into small talk. Right on cue, another message from Callie lit up my screen. Why is my work account locked? That's when I pulled into the parking lot of a quiet little cafe off Route 17, the kind with peeling paint and strong coffee that smells like absolution. I parked, grabbed my folder, and finally hit play on her voicemail. Her voice crackled through the speaker, frantic and syrupy all at once, the same tone she used to talk her way out of parking tickets. Listen, I think we got off track. I made a mistake, okay? One mistake. Can we please just hit reset? You know me better than anyone. We're us, remember? There it was, the soft plea, the rewrite of history, the desperate attempt to pull me back into orbit. For a second, just one stupid second, I almost felt it tug. Then I remembered what was sitting in the passenger seat, a future without her fingerprints on it. So I called her back. She picked up on the first ring, breathless. Oh, thank God. Callie, I said calmly, I'm going to give you one sentence. After that, you'll never hear my voice again. A beat of silence. Then what? I let the pause stretch until it hummed. Then I said it, slow and clean, every syllable sliding like a blade across velvet. Check your email. Subject line, custody transfer. She sucked in air so sharply I could hear the edges tear her throat. What the hell does that mean? Click. And call. Because if you think this was just about her and me, you're dead wrong. There's someone else in this story, someone she forgot about when she decided a night with her ex was worth the fallout. And by the time she reads that email, she'll realize the game didn't just end. I flipped the entire board. I can picture the exact moment she opened it, probably pacing that gutted living room, phone clutched like a lifeline, still in the wrinkled skirt from last night's little betrayal party. The subject line hit first. Custody transfer, effective immediately. Her fingers must have trembled when she tapped it open, eyes skimming the legal language that doesn't scream at you, doesn't threaten, doesn't rant. No, it whispers, cold, clinical, and irreversible. The first line. This is to confirm the execution of the notarized agreement dated 6 months prior. 6 months. That's the gut punch. That's when it clicks. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't storm out in some fit of rage. No, I built this like a cathedral, slow, deliberate, every stone locked in place before the first hymn ever played. Her eyes slide down the page. Full transfer of legal guardianship for minor, Carter James Langford. Signatories, Martin Langford, custodial parent, Callie Monroe, relinquishing party. That name, our son, must have burned like acid. Carter, the boy she used as a shield, a trophy, a pawn in every argument that ended with her saying, "You'd never break this family. You love him too much." She was right about one thing. I do love him. Which is exactly why I made sure he'll never spend another night listening to the echo of slammed doors and whispered phone calls to men who smell like expensive cologne and bad decisions. I imagine her mouth going dry as the final paragraph lands. Effective immediately, primary residence and all associated responsibilities are assigned to the custodial parent. Custody transfer has been filed with the county clerk and confirmed by family court on the date indicated. This agreement is final and legally binding. No room for argument. No gaps she can crawl through with that syrupy voice and crocodile tears. This wasn't a warning shot. It was the quiet detonation of the life she thought was unshakable. And the beauty of it? She signed the papers herself. Back when things were good, when she swore a post-nup was just a formality for the lawyer, when she was too busy curating Instagram filters to read the fine print. I didn't lie. I didn't forge. I just waited. My phone buzzed at 11:07. No words this time. Just a photo. Her, holding the paper, mascara streaking like ink in a rainstorm. Below it, one line. "You can't do this." I stared at the screen, took a slow sip of coffee, and smiled. Then I typed the last message she'll ever get from me. Already did. And while she stood there shattered, clutching a piece of paper that carved her name out of her son's life, Carter and I were 2 hours down the road, singing off-key to some stupid pop song he loves. The kind that makes no sense, but feels like sunshine on your skin. Because this story, it was never about revenge. It was about reclamation. Taking back the pieces of myself, and the boy who deserves better than being collateral damage in his mother's quest for validation. But don't think for a second it ends here. Because Callie's not the type to stay down. And me? I'm not done teaching her what happens when you gamble and forget the house always wins. If heartbreak has a sound, it isn't screaming or breaking glass. It's silence, the kind that buzzes behind your eyes like a dying light bulb. That's what I imagine filled that living room when she dropped the papers and sat down hard on the couch that used to be ours. The same couch where we once argued over throw pillows like idiots. The same couch where she rehearsed fake apologies when she thought charm could outmaneuver truth. Not this time. I didn't see her face, but I know her tells. The first thing she'd do after reading that email is reach for her phone, not to call me again. No, she's too proud for that after my last text cut the line clean. She'd go for her safety net. Her mother, maybe. Or that circle of friends who think loyalty means liking every curated photo. Except here's the thing. When your world collapses, you want comfort, not judgment. And every single one of them is about to see the story unravel in real time, because I made sure of it. At 11:32 a.m., the first post went live. Not from me, never from me. I don't need theatrics. But Callie? She couldn't resist. A black square with a caption bleeding melodrama. When someone you trust destroys everything. Hashtag betrayal, hashtag starting over. 2 minutes later, the comments started. What happened? Girl, call me. And then, the kill shot. Someone tagged him. The ex. The man who hosted the party that pulled the last thread loose. And because this world runs on receipts, it took about 5 minutes for a mutual friend to drop a screen recording of her Instagram story from 1:47 a.m. Half a second of her reflection in a sliding glass door, his arm around her waist like a claim. Leverage? Gone. The narrative she thought she could spin into sympathy? Burned to ash before lunch. By noon, her phone must have been vibrating like a trapped bee. Boss calling, if HR hadn't beaten him to it. Her mother texting, her friends sliding from "Are you okay?" to "Wait, what did you do?" And that ex, the one she gambled it all on, bet he's gone ghost already. Because men like him don't stick around for fallout. They vanish before the dust even settles. Meanwhile, Carter and I were parked outside a diner 2 towns over, splitting a stack of pancakes big enough to feed a football team. He had syrup on his chin, laughing at some ridiculous meme, while my own phone sat face down on the table. Not buzzing, not burning, silent in the best way silence can be. But don't mistake my calm for complacency. This wasn't checkmate yet, not entirely. Because I know Callie. When the walls close in, she doesn't curl up. She claws. She'll come for what she thinks she's owed. Money, reputation, maybe even him. And that's why, before the waitress brought the check, I slid Carter a grin and said, "Ready for a road trip?" Because while she was scrambling for scraps of a life she torched, I was already steering us toward the one move she never saw coming. The one that erases her last card off the table. She didn't show up screaming. That would have been too easy. No, Callie walked in like a storm disguised as a summer breeze. Calm, controlled, and dangerous in all the ways someone is when they've lost everything but refuses to admit it. It was 6:14 p.m. Carter and I were in a roadside diner 3 counties away, the kind of place that still serves milkshakes in steel cups and plays Elvis on a jukebox older than both of us. He was on his 3rd round of fries, laughing at something on my phone, when the door chimed behind me. And just like that, the air changed. I didn't have to turn around. You can feel someone you've loved walking into a room the way you feel a storm shift the pressure in your bones. Still, I took my time, sipped my coffee, let her walk the full stretch of linoleum toward me, her heels clicking like metronome ticks in a song she couldn't finish. "Martin." Her voice was low, almost soft, like maybe if she whispered my name gently enough, I'd forget the taste of betrayal. I didn't look up immediately. Instead, I reached for a napkin and wiped syrup off Carter's chin before finally meeting her eyes. She looked expensive, even unraveling. She'd dressed for war. Crisp blazer, hair smoothed into submission, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown she no longer deserved. But her eyes, they told the real story. Bloodshot, ringed with panic, the kind of eyes that hadn't slept since the world shifted under her stilettos. "You found me," I said evenly. Not a question, a fact. Then, after a pause, "Sit down if you want. Carter, say hi to your mom." His fork froze midair. "Hi, Mom." Flat, polite, the way you greet a substitute teacher you know won't last. She sat across from me, spine straight like a ballerina balancing on a wire. For a moment, she just stared. At me, at Carter, at the greasy diner table between us, like she was cataloging every inch of the reality she thought she could bend back into shape. Then came the opening move. This isn't fair, Martin." Whatever you think I did. I cut her off with a smile so calm it probably made her skin crawl. You mean what I know you did? Her jaw tightened. We can work this out. I laughed softly. Not cruel, just amused. Callie, I didn't come here for a negotiation. That phase ended the moment you walked out in those heels and left our life glowing like a Christmas tree at 4 a.m. She flinched because she knew I'd seen. She knew I'd known all along. This isn't you. She tried again, voice cracking at the edges. You're not cold. I leaned forward just enough for her to see what she'd missed all these years. You mistook kindness for weakness. That's on you. And then, because I wanted the last thread of hope to snap clean, I slid a plain white envelope across the table. She stared at it like it might detonate. What's this? She whispered. Proof, I said, of how done I am. She peeled it open with trembling fingers. Inside, one page. A court notice, signed, stamped, filed, confirming full custody, child support set to 0, and a relocation order granting me permission to move out of state immediately. Her face went pale enough to make the fluorescent lights look flattering. You can't. I stood, tossing a few bills on the table for the waitress. Already did. Then I turned to Carter. Ready, champ? He slid out of the booth without looking at her. No tears. Just quiet finality. The kind that says kids see more than we ever give them credit for. As we walked out, I didn't look back. But I didn't need to. I could feel it. The weight of her silence. Heavier than any scream. Because what kills someone like Callie isn't losing the argument. It's realizing the other person stopped playing the game altogether. The highway stretched ahead like a ribbon of steel, the kind of endless road that eats up old lives and spits out new ones. Carter sat in the passenger seat, headphones on, staring out the window at a blur of pine trees and power lines. Every now and then, he'd hum along to whatever was blasting in his ears, and I'd catch a glimpse of something I hadn't seen in years, a boy unburdened. Meanwhile, my phone sat dark in the cup holder. No buzzing now. No frantic calls or guilt-laced texts. I imagined her back in that diner booth, staring at the relocation order like it was written in a language she couldn't decode. Because here's the truth. Callie was never afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing the illusion, that polished Instagram-ready narrative where she was both the heroine and the prize. And I just shattered it with the quiet elegance of a guillotine. But here's what she doesn't know. What she still doesn't know. That envelope I slid across the table wasn't my final card. It was just the prelude. Because revenge? That's a blunt instrument. What I'm holding is a scalpel. You see, while she was playing dress-up with her ex, I was building more than just a legal wall. I was building an escape hatch, a future so airtight she couldn't even breathe near it. The relocation order wasn't random. It wasn't about distance for the sake of distance. It was tied to something bigger. When Carter was 8, I started to trust in his name. Quiet, small at first, just enough to grow like a shadow while Callie obsessed over curated vacations and custom countertops. Over the years, I fed it, every bonus, every side project, every dime she didn't notice because she was too busy chasing dopamine hits on social media. That trust now, it could buy him a life she'll never touch. College, a home, freedom from the cycle of people like her. But the move, that's the real masterpiece. A small town 3 states away, population under 10,000. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and your reputation isn't measured in likes, but in how you show up when someone's truck won't start in the dead of winter. A place where Carter can breathe, and where I can start over, not as a man running from the wreckage, but as someone building something honest out of the ashes. The GPS chimed, snapping me out of the thought spiral. Turn left in 2 miles. 2 miles to the first chapter of a life Callie will never edit. Carter pulled one headphone off and glanced at me. Dad, yeah, bud. Are we gonna be okay? I looked at him, really looked, and saw the thing that had kept me tethered all these years. I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't need words to back it up. Better than okay. Because here's the truth I've been circling since this whole thing started. This was never about punishing her. It was about saving him, and saving the part of me that almost drowned in the quicksand of her chaos. But don't get too comfortable. Because people like Callie, they don't vanish. They regroup. They rebrand. They come back swinging with claws dipped in charm. And if I know her, she's already plotting the next move. Which is why I had to make mine first, the one that closes the door so hard it echoes for years. And in about 40 minutes, when I pull into that lawyer's office and sign the last document, that door, it won't just close. It'll lock. Forever. 40 minutes later, I was sitting in a room that smelled like old paper and polished wood, the kind of place where lives don't change with shouting matches. they change with ink. The lawyer slid the final document across the desk. It wasn't dramatic. No thunderclap, no orchestra swell. Just a signature line and a pen heavier than it had any right to be. "Once you sign here," he said, voice steady, "there's no going back." That was the point. My hand didn't shake. Not once. The pen scratched against the paper, sealing 6 months of planning in 3 strokes. When I set it down, something inside me shifted, not like a break, more like a release. A weight unhooking from my ribs, letting me breathe without tasting rust. The relocation order was official. Custody untouchable. Assets airtight. Every thread she thought she could pull on had been burned, boxed, and buried under the kind of legal cement you can't crack with charm or crocodile tears. I stepped outside into crisp autumn air just as my phone lit up again. Unknown number. For a second, I considered ignoring it. Then I answered. "Martin." Her voice, raspy, frayed, shot straight through the static. She didn't sound angry anymore. She sounded something worse, desperate. "You can't do this," she said. "You can't just take him. You can't erase me." I leaned against the hood of my car, eyes on the horizon where the sun was folding itself into the earth like gold slipping under a door. "Callie," I said slowly, "you did that all by yourself." She sucked in a breath like a diver about to vanish underwater. "I'll fight you. I'll drag you into court. You'll what?" I cut in, my tone flat as winter ground. "Break a contract you signed? Undo a judgment that's already been filed? You don't have a case. You don't even have standing. What you have, Callie, is a reputation hanging by a thread and a job circling the drain because HR doesn't like when you sleep with clients." Silence. Heavy, humming silence. Then, softly, like she was peeling the last layer of pride off her tongue. "Martin, please. Don't do this to me." I closed my eyes, letting the words wash over me like dirty water circling a drain. For years, that voice could move mountains in me. But now, it didn't even ripple the surface. "I didn't do this to you," I said, calm as the dead of night. "You did this to yourself. Actions have consequences. Remember?" Before she could spin another plea, I hung up, blocked the number, not out of spite, out of necessity. Because some doors aren't meant to stay cracked. Some doors need to slam shut so hard the echo warns anyone else who tries to drag you back into the fire. I slid into the driver's seat, and Carter looked up from his book. "Ready, Dad?" "Yeah, bud," I said, starting the engine. "We're done here." As the car rolled onto the open road, the weight of her voice dissolved behind us, replaced by something cleaner, sharper, silence, the kind that feels like a new language. She thought spending a night with her ex would burn me down. She thought betrayal was a dagger. But here's the truth Callie never understood. Some men don't burn. They build. And when the smoke clears, the one thing left standing is the life you swore you'd never let her ruin. By the time she realized that, the horizon had already swallowed us whole. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own story. I felt alive.